Hello, and welcome to the nonprofit panel here at the Bitcoin Conference 2013. We're in San Jose. I'm so glad everybody could come out today. We really appreciate you being here, and we're so excited to have the chance to talk about how Bitcoin is great for nonprofit organizations and charities, or whatever you'd like to call them, and how nonprofits are great for Bitcoin. So thanks for we're so glad to have the opportunity to be here today. Want to thank the conference organizers, the Bitcoin Foundation and Lindsay Holland. And also, we are here with the help of Bitcoin Not Bombs. And just want to make sure we thank them because they're the ones who have helped us get here and promote our organizations. Bitcoin Not Bombs is a launching pad for Bitcoin nonprofits. And you can check them out at the booth over there in the convention center or at bitcoinnotbombs.com. You'll also find links to all of our individual organizations there. I am Stephanie Murphy. I am working with Free Aid, which is a volunteer first aid organization, and Teresa Warmke is my partner at Free Aid. I'm going to be your moderator for today. I'm also a Bitcoin podcaster, and I've been really excited about Bitcoin since 2011. So I have a very keen interest in this subject of Bitcoin and nonprofits. Also on the panel with me, we've got Angela Keaton. She is a director of operations at antiwar.com. This is the world's largest source, best source, I think, for anti-war news and views. And you can find them at antiwar.com. We've also got Carla Gericke. She is a former attorney. She's originally from South Africa. And right now she is serving as the president of the Free State Project. The Free State Project is an organization that is dedicated to getting people who love freedom and liberty. And I know there are a lot of people who love freedom and liberty at this conference, at the Bitcoin conference. So it's dedicated to getting liberty lovers to move to one place, that is New Hampshire. I actually live in New Hampshire, full disclosure. I've lived there since 2006, and I'm a huge fan of the Free State Project. So Carla, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And then we've got Teresa Warmke. She is the treasurer at Free Aid and co-founder of Free Aid. And Free Aid is a volunteer first aid and educational and networking organization in the healthcare field. And she's also doing a lot of other things that are in the nonprofit sector. Teresa organizes Bay Area Voluntarias. So if you live in the Bay Area, you want to meet up with her, you can find out more about that. And she's also the founder of Sonoma County Full Picture, which kind of talks about alternatives to military service for young people. So ladies, thank you all so much for being here. I'm really excited about this. And let's get started with this panel, shall we? I would like to hear a little bit, yes, thank you. I would like to hear, to start off, just tell me a little bit about sort of the core mission of your organization, just, in a couple sentences. Let's start with Angela.
Antiwar.com, we serve as a news source, and we're basically an educational outlet for news and views against the empire. We're pretty straightforward. It says there right on the page, antiwar.com. It's a U.S. foreign policy from an anti-interventionist perspective. We've been doing it for 17 years. And we just see the future in Bitcoin. Really excited. Thank you, Stephanie.
Yep, and Carla?
As Stephanie said, I'm loud.
You sound good.
As Stephanie said, the Free State Project is a geopolitical movement to try and concentrate freedom lovers in one state, and that state is New Hampshire. That state was chosen for several reasons. It often comes up as the freest state in America. It's very low tax, it's very small business friendly, and basically what we're trying to do is to concentrate people in one place so that we can actually affect change. One of the largest challenges, I believe, for libertarians or freedom lovers is we're all over the place and we're not effective. So the idea is that we would bring everyone to one place. People tend to work on sort of three fronts. They either work in the system, or they work outside the system with civil disobedience, or the part that I'm most excited about, of course, is sort of the agora or the free markets. And we have a very strong Bitcoin presence here. The Llama Su guys, I'm sure you guys saw their money changing machine. You put FRNs in and you get Bitcoins back. I can't imagine something that's better. They're free staters, they've moved there. And so my hope really with our mission is to attract the finest minds working now who believe in freedom and liberty into one place where we can kind of create, similar to Silicon Valley, where we can create a milliard of freedom and of ideas and of entrepreneurship.
And Teresa, tell me more about Free Aid.
Sure.
By the way, we should mention it's, if you want to visit us online, it's FR33AID, AID.
.com.
.com.
Sure. It's the main thing we do is we support volunteers. We're an all-volunteer organization, and we support volunteers who want to do projects that educate people about the value of mutual aid, and we're really focused on the healthcare field. We're an organization of medically skilled Liberty Lovers, and one of our first projects was the Free Hearts Project, which is educating people about CPR and defibrillation. I've worked in medical devices for over 20 years, and I donated my automated defibrillator to Free Aid, and we use it to do demonstrations on how easy it is to help each other if someone has a cardiac arrest before government providers can arrive. And we have many volunteers of, EMTs, paramedics, nurses. We even have a medical technician, all kinds of different people across the field, mental health as well.
We also do networking for
Yes.
medically skilled Liberty Lovers. So
Right.
if you are one, you can volunteer with us.
Yes, they're from all over the world, and a lot of them opt to provide first aid services for free at events like PorkFest, which is put on by the Free State Project. And it's a big reunion every time we get together there at PorkFest for our team. So it's
Right.
great.
So I'd like to hear a little bit about when each of your organizations started to accept Bitcoin. Tell me about the when, why, and how. Why did you get into Bitcoins? When did you start accepting them? And how did you start out?
I think I started the first bit of trickling insane emails from my kookier friends, like in probably 2010, and like every year I thought, oh no, not another libertarian trend, here we go. But, of course, dragged kicking and screaming, we're just, consumer demand and the help of people, of services like the people who run Bitcoin Not Bombs made it really easy. So by, I think, November of 2012, we really started, in earnest taking Bitcoin and being really proud of it because, why fight it? It's here.
Carla?
Sure. So as I said, we have a lot of early adopters in the Bitcoin field in our group. So we started, I believe, back at Liberty Forum in 2011. And we started accepting registrations. And Liberty Forum is our winter event. That's sort of the sister event to the Porcupine Freedom Festival that Teresa was talking about. And since then, we've accepted Bitcoin as registration fees for both of those events. And we've recently, probably in the past year, started to accept Bitcoins as donations as well. And we can talk about maybe some of the pros and cons of that in a bit.
All right. For Free Aid, we started accepting Bitcoins in 2011, and we, posted our address online, and but we didn't get our first donation until early 2012 when Stephanie asked, who's going to be Free Aid's first Bitcoin donor? And suddenly we had quite a few all at once. Thanks, Stephanie. Stephanie does a lot of different podcasts and got the word out for us. And just recently, last April 15th, tax day, we decided to announce that we are a Bitcoin-based organization. So now we operate primarily in Bitcoin. I have less than $10 in our bank account, and we just got a t-shirt order online, so we have like $28 in our PayPal account. But we convert all of our money into Bitcoin. It's very convenient here with a Lamassu machine right next door to our booth, so I'm very proud to be very into the Bitcoin economy with Free Aid.
Yeah, so what do you ladies do with your Bitcoins that your organizations receive? I mean, one of the complaints, I guess, right now, while we're in the early adopter phases of Bitcoin is, well, you can't really buy a lot of stuff with them. So what do you do with them? Do you save them? Do you spend them? Do you use them for reimbursements? Do you change them into dollars? Tell me more about that.
First of all, when we started actually taking it, we called it around the staff the Bitcoin experiment, because we didn't want to be permanently married to another trend that comes and goes, because in the libertarian movement, of which we're kind of a part of, is that people are very, very interested in trying the alternative currencies and looking at economics from a very different perspective. So But so right now it's sort of been like adapting to whatever the needs are. I mean, we're a nonprofit that, is 24/7 and has a very small staff, but a lot of, things that need to be done every day. So sometimes maybe every so many days I make the mental note, convert the Bitcoin. But also because of the nature of the people who use Bitcoin among people who read and donate, it also allows me to exchange with some people. For example, people who did some consulting, I paid it in Bitcoin for the first time and made that exchange internally. So that's right. Right now we're just kind of adapting to needs and kind of seeing how it goes and willing to just enjoy the Bitcoin ride.
Yeah, so you've done both. You've paid for services
Yes.
and you've also converted Bitcoins into dollars. And are you holding any right now?
Yes, this weekend we are holding, and I just, I know the issue of Bitcoin, floodility and speculation. It's just that we are kind of in solidarity, with the Bitcoin conference, just to leave it in the account and show that we're doing things with it this weekend. But
Sure. Well, I guess it's a philosophical question, right? How long do you have to hold to be holding? But do you have to hold it for a weekend or a month or what? But what about you, Carla?
So I would say primarily we're doing pretty much the same thing. We're converting back into FRNs just for right now. And here is by way of example, Satoshi Dice, who's sponsoring the Wi-Fi at this conference, is also one of our big sponsors for the Porcupine Freedom Festival this year. And, they gave us a significant platinum sponsorship. So I don't know how they timed this part, but the money came in pretty much up there at the 260 mark. And of course that was great, but that was also one of those situations where it could be a high-risk situation because of the volatility and the fact that the money started to drop. Now, fortunately, in our organization, we have a treasurer who's really on the ball, and he converted the next day, so we did okay. Like, we didn't really lose any money, but it did sort of drive that point home of,
Right.
I think to some extent, we all went into this and we're like, it's easy to use, it's, easy on the website. We have a lot of our constituents are Bitcoin people, so people are excited and they want to give us money that way. But there are also those issues where you kind of have to be watching it. We have started also now, with something like Bitcoin Not Bombs, we use donations here to all bring us here to be able to come and speak to you guys and really spread the word and to make you cognizant of, there's the techie world and then people are trying to do the businesses, but nonprofits are a really vital point, I think, of starting to spread the story of Bitcoins in a really positive way, because we can also be the early adopters that help to say this is a great way in an alternate currency or a cryptocurrency to get out of, the fiat system.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Free Aid being Bitcoin-based, we're always accepting Bitcoin, and like I said, our main goal is to support volunteers who do projects, and so most of our volunteers are really excited about Bitcoin, and when we became Bitcoin-based, Matt from Lamasu helped a lot of them get started with Bitcoin, and so we have a lot of Liberty lovers who are now using Bitcoin because we went Bitcoin-based. So when they start a project, they usually incur the expenses themselves, and we reimburse them for those. Like Jacob, one of our EMTs, bought a mannequin and for
CPR
teaching
mannequin.
CPR mannequin. Yeah, sorry.
He bought a blow-up
For
doll.
modeling clothes.
No, he didn't do that. Maybe he did that too, I don't know, but yeah, he got a CPR mannequin, for example, and we reimbursed him back then before we became Bitcoin-based, but now, and we also subsidize our proven volunteers who need to travel for a ways to PorcFest, and they were delighted that we were able to offer them, this group of proven volunteers, 1 Bitcoin each, and so they were excited about that. So we're always spending Bitcoin and getting Bitcoin donations, and whenever we get cash donations, I go through a contact I met through localbitcoins.com who is willing to quote me spot price Mt. Gox anytime I want to give him cash, any amount of Bitcoin I can buy from him, and he lives 2 miles away from me. So Local Bitcoins has become my favorite way to do banking. And before the conference, my daughter had a concert that ended at around 9:30, and I asked him, "Hey, can I come see you at 9:30 tonight?" And he said, "Sure, I'm here getting ready for the conference, doing some hackathoning with my friend." And I just came over and did a deal with him and was able to get our bank account down under $10 before coming here. So
That's what you call friendly banking.
yeah, exactly,
9:30 p.m.
exactly. He's Design Dream on and if anyone wants to know him on Local Bitcoins. And so we don't worry about the volatility as much because it's kind of averaged out over time. And we were pretty fortunate in our timing, unlike the Satoshi Dice sponsorship.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is also this aspect of Bitcoin being a deflationary currency, at least so far from what we've seen overall historically. It's been appreciating quite a bit over time. And so do you ladies think that creates a conflict of interest for a charity who maybe people expect to be using donations right away? There is kind of an incentive to save or to hold. I don't like the word hoard, but to save, with a deflationary currency. So what do you ladies think about that? Do you think there's a tension? Does public pressure play a role in that at all, making sure charities are spending their Bitcoin donations?
I think that, because this is still so new, people are still so figuring it out. And I think from a corporate governance standpoint, at some stage, people will start to go, okay, this makes sense. Depending, and we all kind of do it in a little different way. But if, you're going to say 40% needs to be converted to FRNs, we're going to use that. But I could see it becoming actually, let's say you keep 20% in Bitcoin and you just disclose that to your board. And basically what you're saying to them is, hey, we're going to save this part. This is going to be something that we see as a fund that over time is going to reap greater rewards.
Right.
Yeah, and for Free Aid, we believe in transparency, absolutely. In the next 2 months, we're going to post financial information similar to what the IRS would require. We just want to be very transparent. But Bitcoin really helps us have that level of transparency. We went through the Vanity Gen to get a Free Aid address, and
So the Bitcoin address actually says our organization's name in it. So
it's one Free Aid to start with, and we had also help from our Bitcoin consultant Matt from Lamassu with getting that done, and then anyone can look up that address in the blockchain and see. And I've started to put in the notations whenever I send a Bitcoin to one of our first aid volunteers that's coming to Fort PorcFest. I'll say a notation like PFX volunteer subsidy. Volunteer travel subsidy, so people can have very transparent information about us as a charity. And we were holding more Bitcoin than I would normally like to hold before this event because I wasn't sure how much we were going to raise and I wasn't sure how much we were going to be able to offer to volunteers. But I just decided to go forward with the one Bitcoin, and if we can increase that later, we will, depending on how much funds we raise and with the support from Bitcoin Not Bombs, as Stephanie and my colleagues have been saying. We're doing a lot of good fundraising here, and a lot of people are buying shirts, and that's awesome. And
yeah, the Bitcoin Not Bombs T-shirts, you can
Stand
find those
up
over at
and
our booth.
Show them.
yeah, shirts. Yeah, Mark's wearing our nice B word cloud there, and so yeah, it's awesome. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to spend more sooner, but we also have to be careful. One of our volunteers is thinking about starting a disaster services program, which would be fantastic. And when that happens, I know the Red Cross gets a lot of flack for this, but I actually support it. Like, they need to be able to respond within minutes whenever a disaster hits, and that's a kind of a form of self-insurance. And if you don't want to have to rely on loans and all kinds of paperwork that delays you and takes a long time, it's really nice for them to just be able to immediately offer cards that will allow people to get a hotel room if they need it. And I want Free Aid to be able to offer some of that same kind of service. And if our volunteer that just has this idea wants to do that, I would definitely want to be disclosing that there will be a certain amount of Bitcoin that we will hold in reserve to help fund things like that are necessary quickly.
Yeah, and of course the blockchain makes that super easy.
Yeah.
It's like you
Transparent.
almost don't have to do any accounting. It's just right there for you in a public ledger. So it's great for transparency for charities. So do you ladies accept other alternative currencies for donations to your organization? And what do you see as the differences between, for instance, Bitcoin and something like silver as an alternative to donating cash?
We certainly do accept gold and silver. We recently had a fundraising at Liberty Forum, and I was delighted when someone gave me a Krugerrand. So, we won't say no to that. I mean, I think gold, silver, lead, and bitcoins is what you need to be holding. And but I do see a trend going sort of towards the Bitcoin more. Certainly, I've seen people talking for the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which will be June 17th through the 22nd of this year up in the White Mountains. We've always had a very robust counter economy there, and in the past people would trade in gold and silver, primarily in silver, of course, either with dime cards like Shire Silver, sorry, too many Shires.
Yeah.
And, people would trade with dime cards, people would trade in coins. This year, I've actually heard some of our vendors say they're thinking about not accepting silver just because it's so hard and just going straight to a Bitcoin economy at the event. So it's probably one of the first places in the world, and you could have done this 2 years ago. You could buy, Lou Rocky Road ice cream with a Bitcoin.
And let me just put this in perspective. These people are alternative currency freaks. They hate the Federal Reserve. They don't want to use their money, and they would love any chance they could get to use alternative currency. And so for somebody to say, we're going to be picky, we're not going to accept silver, we're going to prefer bitcoins instead, that's a huge deal. And this is in the middle of the woods, too, with cell phone reception that sometimes is a little spotty. So, this is a huge deal, people preferring to accept bitcoins over silver. So, okay, I want to ask, do you think that your organizations have gotten more support because you accepted Bitcoin, or simply because you accepted Bitcoin? Like, just from people who are Bitcoiners and they're excited and they're like, oh, here's a charity that accepts Bitcoin, I think I'll give them a donation.
For sure. I think with Free Aid, we definitely, we got a big bump when we announced that we were abandoning our IRS application on April 15th to become a nonprofit. And
some coverage in the Huffington Post, which probably publicized a little.
And we were announcing then that we were becoming a Bitcoin-based charity. We got a big bump in donations from that, and I'm sure directly related to the fact that we're becoming Bitcoin-based, and people wanted to support what we were doing and the work that we're doing, and our reasons for wanting to go with Bitcoin. Yeah. So definitely. And from early on, we've had a lot of people that have come up to our booth at PorcFest, for example, even 2 years ago. We were, asking, do you take Bitcoin? And so absolutely, I think that without accepting it, they probably wouldn't have given us cash instead.
I think what she's really saying is, yes, we are willing to accept all the Bitcoin millionaires' donations.
Well, sure. There's,
there is, I mean it in a serious way as well. There is a sense of people feel a sense of wealth that they may not have felt otherwise, and that's exciting because that means you can be more generous than you could be in the past. Maybe now it's like you might not have given a $160 or $200 donation, but you're like, what? I'm just going to send over one Bitcoin because it's going to make me feel good because I'm sitting on it.
And it's so easy. All you have to do is type it in and wait for a few minutes for it to confirm. No PayPal, no fees.
And
nobody's stopping you.
And we can talk about PayPal because I'm sure we all have pretty nightmare experiences.
Yeah, I think all of our sure. Let's talk about the legacy banking system. So what have you experienced with your organization that has made it more difficult to focus on your mission as a charity, nonprofit, educational organization, whatever, from the legacy banking system that Bitcoin gets around?
Well, I have a couple of stories, as you know. Yeah. PayPal has twice locked down our account. I want to say arbitrarily, but they first locked us down after our very first $1,000 donation. Immediately afterward, they decided to confiscate our funds because we weren't a 501c3 organization yet. But even the IRS says that, as long as before you become before they recognize that, you still are operating as a nonprofit, and they still say that. So even after providing all this paperwork, PayPal never did. And so I had to open yet another bank account because PayPal won't let you transfer it was just a nightmare. It took me, as the treasurer, it took me about 2 weeks to get this straightened out, and I had to self-fund. That was right before our very first PerkFest as a group at Free Aid, and I had to self-fund a lot of it just because I knew that I was going to be able to straighten out the PayPal, but a lot of our donations for our startup expenses were already in that $1,000, for example, and I knew I was going to be eventually successful, which I was, but that was just a nightmare as a
I would say
startup
that's a
organization.
barrier to charitable work.
Huge barrier. Huge barrier. I'm glad I was able to cover it, but not all charities would be able to do that and
Yep.
make that come out okay. So that's just one example of a nightmare scenario I've experienced with the banking system right now.
Yeah. I mean, does anybody else have a comment about that?
Go ahead.
The kind of people who started antiwar.com are always early adapters and always doing, like, looking for new things. But the subject matter itself, the nature of the nonprofit, makes us much more conservative with how we deal with things. So, I mean, we've had, I'd say neutral experiences, in terms of the practical matters of dealing with PayPal, the major credit card process, and so on. But there's, of course, people who will have different, ethical standards about who and what means they want to use. Because all these issues like PayPal and credit cards have other ethical issues attached to them, too.
I imagine there are lots of WikiLeaks and Julian Assange supporters who are not thrilled with PayPal and credit cards. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's one of the things too, is when you're dealing, I mean, the nature of our particular topic is so hypersensitive and controversial. I mean, just talking about anti-war things can sometimes make people all freeze up and nervous, that, we tend to err on the side of conventionality and caution because obviously, as you know, the FBI and others monitor organizations. I mean, it's just
You're on
that
a list,
reality.
Angela.
Yes, I mean, it's...
We're all on a list.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah. So do you ladies think that if you were starting your organization today from scratch and you decided that you were going to go set it up with Bitcoin, how do you think it would be different from how you originally set up the organization? Do you think it's easier? Do you think it lowers the barrier to entry for starting a charity?
Sure, I think so. And I think I like that you use charity and not nonprofit because, nonprofit in some ways is part of a status language. It's part of the government language. It's them giving you a license or giving you freedom, not to pay taxes on something that should be a voluntary transaction between two human beings. I mean, it's one of the best transactions is someone who is truly giving charity from their heart, whether, it's an atheist to a Christian or a Christian to an atheist or whoever is doing it. It's you want to help someone. And really the government should not be in the middle of that transaction, and they should not be giving you a permission slip to say, hey, we'll let you keep 100% of your money. Gee, thank you. So I think it's really exciting to start a charity and just to say, I'm a Bitcoin charity, I am outside your matrix, we're on this side, guys, and you can work in your system, and more power to you on that side of the fence, but we think on this side of the fence we have a better, more peaceful, more prosperous way to live our lives, and we're going to decide how to give money between private people as a private transaction.
Yeah, and for Free Aid, for Free Aid, yes. If we had, we started in 2010, or early 2011 is when we created our bank account, but we actually kind of founded the organization in late 2010. If we had to do it again, the only reason I got a taxpayer ID number and started getting into the system is because in order to be a professional nonprofit and have funds separate from my own personal funds as the treasurer, I had to have a bank account. And at the time, I was aware of Bitcoin, but I wasn't, there weren't nearly as much services and infrastructure out there, and I really wasn't even thinking about banking with Bitcoin back then. But if I knew then what I know now, what would have been possible, I would have absolutely skipped that whole process. I would have never filed for a taxpayer ID number, which I can't even begin to tell you. That was like the hardest decision I've made as Free Aid's treasurer, it was super simple process, go on the IRS website and get a taxpayer ID number, but I knew that would set in motion a whole host of paperwork and hassle and all kinds of stuff.
And possibly, political prosecution
Absolutely.
from the IRS, who are now in charge of our health care.
Absolutely, yes. And that sucks. Yeah, that's a good point. We should write a blog post about that. But anyway, yeah, if I had known then, I would have just banked with my friends through Loco Bitcoins like I do now, and wouldn't have hassled with the PayPal and anything. We would find another solution and work mostly with Bitcoin.
So, I think a lot of charities are sort of in the system because they see a trade-off between how big they can get or how much growth they can experience, and there are advantages. I'm familiar with anti-war. I think there are lots of people who want to write off charitable donations on their taxes, and so that's one reason to have this status of recognition, permission from the IRS. So do you see a trade-off between that, the size of an organization and using Bitcoin? Is Bitcoin only for small charities, or could any charity potentially benefit from it?
Oh, I don't know what antiwar.com would look like today if it were totally reorganized under the Bitcoin, because it really was very much under an older system, pre the rise of kind of cultural anarchism, before people started doing things like the Free State Project. So you kind of did things the old school way, and but I don't know if there'd be. I mean, it's really I don't know yet, because I still think it's very, very small, and it's still very controversial. Even if we kind of understand it, most people still kind of would say, yeah, it's a pretty fringy.
Okay.
And I think Teresa's decision, or Free Aid's decision, to go Bitcoin based is really brave, and I think it makes sense because it's a pretty young organization, so it's starting from the ground up. If you're a legacy organization, the Free State Project's been around for 10 years. We're in our second round of applying for 501c3, so hopefully they don't watch this tape. But, there's a reason for that, and of course it's because, there are large donors out there, and that is one of the things that they look at. We're going to start to create a different donor base. I circle back to the Bitcoin millionaires, and that'll be, our Coke money of the future, so to speak.
K-O-C-H, not C-O-K-E.
Yes. Oh, yes, we should clarify. This is not the Silk Road Coke.
Right. Just want to get that clear.
And actually, we should talk about Silk Road, because one of the things that, we hear a lot is that, Bitcoin's just used for drugs or for nefarious purposes.
Right.
But Zero Hedge did a survey a while ago, and I think it was under 20% went to Silk Road.
10%.
But, yeah.
Had said that they had ever bought drugs online on the Silk Road, and over 50%, it was 55 or 56% said that they had used Bitcoins as donations.
Exactly.
So donations are, according to this survey, the most common use of Bitcoins. And I think that's really important to point out, because they really do have this sort of undeserved reputation. And the more charities we can have out there, especially since Bitcoin makes it so easy to start a charitable organization, the more charities we can have out there, the better. And the more people think of Bitcoin as a tool that can really be used to help and empower people.
I would really love to see lots of different organizations, not just charities, not just Silk Road, but like all different. I want the economy to be full and robust, and the more we can do to talk more people into using Bitcoin and accepting Bitcoin, the less powerful fiat money and US dollars on the US government will be, and the less likely they will be to spend their money on unpopular projects that would never receive voter support, like wars.
But this is also a really good opportunity for freedom organizations to exploit the Bitcoin world, because the people who adapt to Bitcoin...
Don't tell them you're exploiting them.
We're exploiting them. This is a perfect opportunity, and I see many libertarians in the audience. This is the perfect time to be propagandizing to an audience that's very, very open to the future, that wants to see new ideas, that really likes the Bitcoin's not bombs process because they want to see a less violent future. And this is the audience too, the people who are on the cutting edge of technology. These people are, we're looking at the future, and anarchism, which I hope I didn't overstep there, but is going to be part of that.
Yeah. So, okay. Do you think that there are any limitations that come along with an organization accepting Bitcoin, like a charity? Can you think of any downsides? 'Cause I want to be fair and balanced here, right?
Sure. I mean, I think the volatility is an issue. You do, by default, become a currency speculator. You're speculating, in our case, because we are transferring back. So, you know, in the way that you would be dollars to Swiss marks or whatever, and people are paying attention, it's a giant industry. Suddenly, you know, nonprofit or a small organization is in a situation where they're like, wow, we really need to be paying attention to this stuff because we're suddenly a currency speculator.
And they may not have the staff or the expertise for that necessarily.
Or not even know, you know, I mean, and I think it was because we were just caught up in the run-up. You know, if you had been doing it the first 2 years, that would be much less of a concern. And I think as things tend to stabilize, but, you know, it did put a little red flag out there, and it was like, okay, this is something we actually need to look at and pay attention to.
Right. I really can't think of anything else. You know, for us, transparency is really important, and Bitcoin allows for that. But maybe if people want to put out a donation and not be transparent, maybe that would be a limitation for them. But certainly isn't a problem for us. Yeah, I don't see any downsides to accepting it.
The downsides are obvious. The feds at some point are going to crack down on users. I mean, they already obviously are, but I mean on this kind of nonprofit use or charitable use, they're going to look for ways to crack down. So that would be a disadvantage, though I don't think that's a reason not to step into it, because obviously the more of us who do it, the more difficult it becomes to just start mass prosecutions of people who are just trading, you know,
Who are doing charitable work.
Just little things, you know, little things online. That's all we're doing. I mean, it's really a safe, sane, voluntary activity.
Right, absolutely. So, I mean, there's been talk of, you know, all these Bitcoin startups are coming out, and there's all this venture capital that's flowing into Bitcoin-based startups, and people are doing really well for themselves, right? And that's great. Like, we support commerce and economic activity, want to build a robust Bitcoin economy and community. But, you know, there's been talk of like successful corporations in the legacy system do charitable giving. They usually set aside some percentage for charitable giving. So do you think that the Bitcoin community is ready for something like that, to have Bitcoin charities who are willing to say, yeah, we'll take your donations if you've been doing really well with Bitcoin, and we'll do something really cool with them, and we'll, you know, give you some PR?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely think, I mean, I think about that as sort of the Whole Foods model, you know, where they, you know, they're in it for the money and they're in it for profit, but they also want to give back to the community. And I think that would be a really perfect model as these businesses start to succeed, to really say, oh, you know what, we're going to put up a corporate giving plan, and we're going to say we're going to spend, you know, 5% of what comes in, and we're going to work with organizations that do Bitcoins and sort of help grow the nonprofit, the charity sector, as well as, you know, gaining that PR. So, you know, it's not just, I mean, I think greed is good, don't get me wrong, but, you know, it's a conversion, and you have to make things palatable for other people. And I do think nonprofits and charities can have a very strong role in that.
Yeah, and we're definitely working with Bitcoin Not Bombs already to publicize people that have sponsored our work, and growing Bitcoin charities, and helping us with our programs as well. And so I would love to continue doing that with additional sponsors and people that may want to work on specific projects with us, or just list us among their charitable giving back to the community kind of thing. So we'd love that.
Yeah, I agree. And I could see it even going beyond just simply donating Bitcoins. For instance, here at this conference, we had an offer to receive a donation of an ASIC miner, which, I mean, that's a gift that keeps on giving. That's a goose that lays golden eggs, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, things like that, you know, would be great for a charitable organization. Or even, you know, perhaps a charity could start a mining pool, and a percentage of the mining pool, you know, the pool fee is a little higher than normal, and it goes to support a charity. So I see a lot of creative uses for kind of donating Bitcoins that aren't just necessarily like, okay, send them to this address.
Right, absolutely. I'd say with free aid, the only money we wouldn't take is government money. So any other kind of in-kind donation, and, you know, we've had a few kind of interesting in-kind donations, but we'll take, absolutely, the miner would be good. But yeah, the one thing I would refuse is any government money.
Yeah. All right, so I guess I have a couple of technical questions about how you manage the Bitcoin donations for your organization. First of all, who has stewardship over the Bitcoins that your organization receives? And how is continuity of assets managed? Like, for instance, if somebody has the key to the Bitcoin wallet for your organization, and then suddenly they quit or they pass away or something happens to that, or they forget the password, how do you manage that?
Well, for Free Aid, I'm the treasurer, and I'm the only one that has the private keys to Free Aid's accounts. We actually have 3 addresses, but the one we're using, I ported them all over into our one Free Aid one, so it's all transparent now. That one has all of our Bitcoins in it now. And I asked around because I thought it would be really cool to have some kind of notification of some kind of like tamper evident document vault or something online where my partner it would email me or SMS me if someone tried to get into it, but I couldn't find anything like that. And so I posted in one of the, I think on my feed, but maybe in one of the Free State forums, asking people if they knew any apps that would facilitate continuity in case something happens to me as the treasurer. And Abby Gonzalez, I think his name is, one of the Free Staters I know, told me about Death Switch, which has got a terrible brand name, but basically I have to enter I've set up a message to go to Stephanie through Death Switch that gave her 1/2 of the password that she needs to open the file, and I enter my password into to the Death Switch system every month, and they know I'm still alive, so then they don't send Stephanie the other half. So that's how we set it up for Free Aid, so that I like single point accountability. So if some Bitcoins go missing, you can look at me, and it's either a technical problem or I have an answer for you. I don't like the kind of diffusion of responsibility that sometimes happens in big organizations, and this was the way that I saw to solve the problem of continuity if something happens with me.
That's a great idea, and I'm going to steal it.
Yeah, please steal any ideas that you
Yes.
hear on this panel. We're all open source. We want to
We're
help
all
other
open source.
organizations.
Exactly. In our case, it's the treasurer who does it, and so I defer beyond that.
Okay. So you have a single point of accountability too with your
Yes.
treasurer.
Actually, I mean, there might be a couple of the techies who know what's going on too, but yeah.
Did you want to comment on that, Angela?
I mean, one of my roles in the staff is to kind of keep track of the freaky libertarian affectations that we do. So I'm in charge of the Bitcoin account. No one else is going to want it. And then, of course, in terms of passcodes, that's why you have office managers, just straight old forward, nonprofit management. It's kind of, we keep it really simple.
Okay. Do you know who your Bitcoin donors are? That's another question, because charities might receive donations, and if you get a donation through PayPal, you pretty much know who that person is. You get their name and address there. And you can send them a thank you note, or you can, if there's some kind of problem, it doesn't go through, you can let them know. But with Bitcoin donations, they can be completely anonymous, and you have no idea who sent you those Bitcoins. And so how do you deal with that? Do you know who your Bitcoin donors are? Do you get emails from them saying, hey, I sent you 0.1 Bitcoins? And
This is something I would love to have a applet or something I could stick on our website that would include a form and just an easy click to get to their Bitcoin wallet, all in one form, like a BitPay button, but with a form that collects their, at least their email address. And it's all optional. I wouldn't force them to fill it out, but
you just want to say thanks, right?
What I found is that, when you have a website, you just have to post your QR code or your address, and some of them have UPIs that will open a wallet, but not all of our donors are as tech geeky as a lot of the people here, so they don't know how to make that work. And so if we could have more simplicity, that would be great. What we did to solve the problem was we put a little note saying, if you send us Bitcoin, please contact us, and it links to our contact us page to let us know you sent us some money, just so that we can thank you. And we really like to thank our donors and have it be totally optional, but we want to make it easy for people to let us know who they are so that we can really thank them. And and no, but it's totally fine if we get random donations. And Free Aid has been getting very, very small Bitcoin donations, and I don't know why, but we'll take them. We'll take them.
I think it's kind of the equivalent to somebody throwing their change in a jar.
It
It's
seems
"Yeah, I'll
like
give you
it,
my
yeah.
change." And who knows if we hang on to it for a couple more years, that BitDust may be able to buy us a ticket to PorcFest or something.
Yeah, I like that BitDust. That's
Yeah,
good.
that's what they call it. Right. So I guess just kind of looping things back around, I forgot to mention there's a couple other things about the Bitcoin community kind of interfacing with charities and helping them out. There are a couple of organizations that I think deserve a mention in this area, like, for instance, BitPay, because what they do is they allow people to accept Bitcoin for products and services or donations, and then they immediately convert it to your favorite legacy currency. So it's a nice service that takes the risk out of accepting Bitcoins for a merchant who might not be comfortable with that. And for charities and nonprofits, they say on their website that it's only 501c3 organizations, but if you actually go talk to them, they'll say, yeah, we can work something out. They do a 0% fee on that conversion. So I think they're really there to support charitable organizations too. And do you ladies know of any other Bitcoin-based companies that are kind of working with charities in that way to support them? We had a couple there was somebody that we met at the conference just recently who has a website called, I believe it's Bitcoin 100.
That's right.
He was attempting to get charities to accept Bitcoins and was going to set them up with a wallet and have promised donations of, at the time, it was 100 Bitcoins when they were worth $10 a piece. Then later he had to change it to $1,000 worth of Bitcoin. But he had a bunch of Bitcoin donations and was wanting to get charities to accept Bitcoin and would help set them up. But didn't get that many takers, quite honestly, and thought that a lot of that was probably because these charities were afraid. They thought this was, some crazy illegal thing, and of course there's nothing illegal about it. And it's great for charities, as we've hopefully shown today. So I hope some people will take advantage of that. They still have quite a fund over there at Bitcoin 100. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, I guess just to close out, and then we'll take some questions from the audience if anybody has any. I just want to get some comments finally about, what effect do you think that Bitcoin charities have on the greater Bitcoin community? And if you have any more comments on what effect Bitcoins have on charities or nonprofits, educational organizations. It's a big umbrella. It's all what we do. But, sort of the interface between the two, and any comments you want to make on that.
I think Carla already covered it pretty well in one of her previous answers. I really think that having charities, it makes it a really more robust economy that works in Bitcoin, and we're part of the picture here. And like in Free Aid, all of our volunteers are now new Bitcoin users, and a lot of them were already using Bitcoin, very early adopters, but I'd say about half of them didn't have wallets set up or anything, and they're getting set up now. And I think we do a lot to get more people into using Bitcoin, and that's just really good for everyone that has Bitcoin and uses it. And we kind of round out the other side of the Silk Road kind of branding that Bitcoin has around it. So I'd like to think that helps as well.
Ultimately, I think, an organization like antiwar.com, it lends legitimacy to the Bitcoin community because, it's an organization that's been around for a really long time. It's does really important work, and so it's that legitimacy and then that grassroots tapping on, getting more people involved. Imagine if someone could close getting the Red Cross to take Bitcoin, then it's all over because
I'm working on it. I'm working on it, Carla.
Yeah, then they could have donations from anywhere in the world with no red tape. It's easy to send a small amount. It's just great. By the way, I want to say that we've had this table at this conference where we've been with Bitcoin Not Bombs, gotten a ton of traffic to our booth over the weekend. There's over 1,100 attendees here. And I haven't heard a single person say that they disagreed with the ideas of, anti-war sentiments or the phrasing, Bitcoin Not Bombs. We got so many compliments on that.
And one of our pins that sold the best was the bomber with the Bitcoins coming out of it, and the shirts have done really well. We're sold out of our smaller sizes, and that's really exciting.
If you're seeing this later online, you can probably order them from bitcoinnotbombs.com.
Yeah, and then also freeaid.com will also have shirts for sale in Bitcoin, but we also refer to the Bitcoin Not Bombs for our PayPal customers that insist on using credit cards, and that was always kind of fun. There were a few sheepish customers that came up to us with credit cards. we
Yeah,
made it a little
apologizing.
bit difficult because only one of us can accept them. So, but yeah, it's been great. It's been a lot of fun being at the booth and talking with a lot of people that are excited about what we're doing and about the great designs that Davi Barker created for us to use in this conference and in these shirts.
We have to thank Bitcoin Store also,
Yes.
bitcoinstore.com, for their sponsorship helping us get here as well.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
And I just wanted to say before we close out is that there are people who really do want to live in their values. And if you have, peace values, if you're interested in nonviolence, then Bitcoin is a voluntary consensual activity that is not part of the empire. It is not part of centralized banking. And it's important to give people the opportunity, to allow people to really live within their values. And this is what Bitcoin, it's a symbol of that. I mean, it's still a very, very, very tiny percentage of donations for us, but it's part of a mindset that is, we do not want to participate in violence.
Yeah, and I want to also get back, gold and silver are somewhat like that too. I kind of look at Bitcoin as kind of like an online gold or an online silver that's much easier to trade with in today's current infrastructure with the internet and everything.
Take some gold, add a teleporter, make it easy to divide and put back together, and you've got Bitcoin.
But a lot of the same features I like about gold, I also like about Bitcoin. It's possible to buy with cash anonymously, locally. It's possible to buy and trade peer-to-peer. It's just not as easy to use nowadays. But one of our other sponsors was Roberts & Roberts Brokerage, and they really helped support our printing of our shirts and allowed us to take the profits from the shirts without having to incur the expenses. And so we really appreciate them, and they accept Bitcoin for gold and silver. And we have their cards at our table too, Roberts & Roberts.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. All right. Well, ladies, thank you so much, Teresa, Carla, and Angela. And I want to just promote everybody's organization one more time. So Teresa's at fr33aid.com. That's free aid, volunteer medical services, networking, education for liberty-loving health professionals. Carla's at the Free State Project, freestateproject.org. If you're interested in moving to New Hampshire, getting active for more freedom in your lifetime, or you're just curious, or you want to go to a camping festival in the woods with a bunch of libertarians, check out the Free State Project, freestateproject.org. And the festival is PorcFest, PORCFEST.com. Angela is at antiwar.com. Very self-explanatory, but it's always refreshing, with new articles, commentary. It's your source for anti-war news and perspectives. So, ladies, thank you so much. All right, and we can take some questions from the audience. Does anybody have a question they'd like to ask?
The mic's over there.
You want to go first? You had your hand up first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll go first. Okay. So I'm Randy Hinken. I'm the executive director of the Seasteading Institute, and
Oh,
we're
yeah.
accepting Bitcoins also. And I think this question's for you, Angela, since you seem to be the only 501c3. The way we plan to deal with the IRS is measure our Bitcoins as if they were just an in-kind gift, and then when we record it, we'll record it for what we converted them into. Are you expecting to do the same thing?
We haven't quite reached the top point where we think like that we're really, I'm still waiting to see what Bitcoin looks like. We're kind of measuring it. There's been long periods where there's no push. If we don't actually push and start and tell people to do it, there's been periods of no donation. So it's going to be probably toward the end of the year before we figure out how it is we'll measure it. But one of the things about because there's a log that I can show them, it's pretty streamlined and straightforward, but also the other record is that they're seeing these small increments where they're coming from directly into our bank account, and that's all open. So right now I'm just not concerned too much, but with maybe a bigger organization, I would consult a tax attorney.
I have a follow-up to that. Doesn't the IRS require of 501c3 organizations that they report who large donors are? So how would you do that with a Bitcoin donor?
Okay,
Because you
one of the
wouldn't.
things about this is understand about one of the things about Bitcoin, and this is the same thing too with Federal Reserve notes, is that you can use services like Donors Trust to preserve an anonymity of your donors.
Donors Trust?
Right.
Okay.
there is one of the things about Bitcoin is that it allows people to be completely anonymous, which is very, very important when you're dealing with controversial subjects under the current political climate or under the current situation. So that part, and keeping, we don't reveal names of donors. I mean,
Gotcha.
unless, within the most, we keep it right, with whatever the most minimal legal requirement is, and if anyone has a problem with that, we'll be talking to the ACLU about it, or who else other
Excellent.
defends the privacy of people to
Great.
give as they see freely.
Gotcha. Okay, next question.
Well, I was just wondering about, you were talking, Teresa was talking about, wishing she had started from scratch and just done Bitcoin and no other currency. I'm just wondering, you think about the trade-off of all the people that would have given you money that don't understand Bitcoin or maybe don't even believe in Bitcoin for whatever reason, And so I was just wondering if you want to speak to that a little bit.
From the beginning, Free Aid has been mostly supported by cash at events like PorcFest, and we've received very few donations online, and most of the online donations we received were from people I knew from events I went and spoke with, like Bay Area Voluntarists have been incredibly generous with us, and so I don't think we would have missed out on that many donations. I think we probably would have come out about even, honestly. If not, maybe even ahead, because we're an early adopter and there are a lot of wealthy Bitcoin people. Maybe they like what we're doing and being, I think we're probably the first Bitcoin-based charity, and we're certainly evangelizing use of Bitcoin and all of the great technologies we run across that make it easy for us, like the Lamasu machine. I can just use it and not have to worry about keeping my cash straight and paying fees to my bank for depositing large amounts of cash like they're mostly charging now. So I think that in the end, I think we're probably about even for our organization. Now, that would be very different for antiwar.com. We started in, like I said, late 2010, so that really allowed us to use Bitcoin more seamlessly than some older organizations have. So, that's
Great.
good.
Next question.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Hi. Well, so I just first of all wanted to commend you all for amazing work that you're doing, and I'm fairly new to this whole community and learning a lot, and so this may be already happening. But one of the things I've been thinking about in this conference is the amount of money that is being saved or earned by just the fact of Bitcoin, or the reduced cost of transactions through like BitPay's reduced cost versus PayPal or whatever. Is there a larger sort of overarching umbrella effort that is being pushed by someone or some entity to encourage the organizations that are making that money or saving that money to either reinvest it in Bitcoin to strengthen the currency, or to invest it in charitable, organizations or a foundation, maybe like a Bitcoin Foundation. I know there is one, but maybe something that's focused on investing. The money that's going to start, it probably is and will start flowing. It just seems like we should at least try to grasp a fraction of what everyone is getting out of this and put it into good causes. So
I think you just wrote the marketing proposal for the Whole Foods part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can,
is,
that's a great
pass
thing. You can
along the
start one.
savings,
Well, we can.
That's
we
a
can
great
do things,
idea.
Yeah, we can do things to help people visualize the amount of money saved, and especially from we have volunteers all over the world, and if one of them decides to come to PorcFest, it would be so nice just to send them a Bitcoin and not have to worry about wire fees and all that kind of nonsense, and then whatever exchange rate they decide to gouge you with or whatever, it's just a Bitcoin, I love how much you can save versus the usurious fees that some of these credit cards charge and things like that.
Yeah, and honestly, if you have the time, the energy, start it. This is a
Yeah.
completely voluntary world, and I think that would be such a great idea. We'll help out with it. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yay. Thanks. Next question.
Hi, I'm from Let's Talk Bitcoin. I have a comment for Angela and then a question for the panel. The comment is, if you are writing original content and you're not currently monetizing it, then there are some very interesting ways that you can do that with Bitcoin. I'd love to talk to you about that after the talk.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the question is, this is a little bit of a long one. So the Red Cross in Haiti was a bit of a disaster by any real standard. And a big part of that, and the reason why they were used, is because they have the infrastructure in order to collect the funds and to raise the funds, and then essentially they don't perform a lot of the charity themselves. Instead, they find the contractors or charities that do it for them. What I've been thinking about is the idea of like a Meta Red Cross or Meta Charities, where basically you have a platform for charities, and instead of having specific causes that you as an organization are doing, you have all of these little micro charities listed with the people behind them and the projects and the goals, and then again the one-click ability to donate bitcoins to them through that way, so that you can see in a very real way where the money is going and directed at a granular level. Do you think that that's something that any of your charities would be interested in looking at building platforms for?
Absolutely.
That's basically Bitcoin, not bombs.
Totally.
That's what they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the idea. I think it's awesome. Yeah. Anybody else
Definitely.
have a comment?
Yeah, I guess I just want to add, we all believe that people should decide who to volunteer with. United Way aggregates money. I choose not to do that. It's kind of a lazy way. They take a huge overhead, and Bitcoin Not Bombs does not take a huge overhead, I can assure you. But to make it easy for people that just don't want to look into anything, they just want to donate to a bunch of Bitcoin charities, or whatever, that's fine. We can aggregate, but we also believe in, if people just really, really want to donate to anti-war. I had someone come up to the table and I said, I feel kind of bad, but I really only donate to anti-war. I'm like, oh, so do I. And Carla was standing right next to me and she said, so do I. So, that was pretty fun. And this should be voluntary. You shouldn't have to feel coerced into donating to anyone you don't want to support. And so we want to make it easy. If you want to donate to all these, then you can. And if not, then that's fine too.
Yeah. Okay. One last question.
Yeah, I got a quick comment and then a question. I think, Teresa, you mentioned trying to get the Red Cross on board, and I think that would be an amazing thing. And something they do when you see their pledge drives or whatever, when there's a disaster, they put text this number. But how much easier would it be for them to just put a QR code in the bottom of the screen and say,
Right.
donate what you want by scanning this QR code and sending us Bitcoin?
Yeah.
But my question was towards Carla. Since the Free State Project accepts Bitcoins and then soon thereafter turns them into cash, is there a reason that you guys don't use BitPay? Is there a reason where it just automatically happens for you?
I think they're looking into it, and he may even be on it already. As I said, I'm not on the technical
Right.
side. I just trust the people who are going to do it right and to do it well. They may be automatically on it already, and if not, we can let them know.
Yeah, I just wondered if there was a reason
Yeah.
behind that. All right, cool.
Great. Everybody, thank you so much for coming to our panel. Really appreciate you being here. Thanks, ladies, for being on the panel.